Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are here with a special guest today. Before I give it away, I wanted to say hello to Jamie and ask her how she's doing.
Hello, doing good, doing good. Very excited to have our guest here today. I don't want
So
to take any time
I don't
away
want
from
to
you.
take any. Oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and give a spoiler alert. It is Rich Holman, and he is the author of Killing You Softly. And as an introduction to him, instead of doing a lengthy bio, I'm going to actually start out with a question, and that will allow him to tell a little bit about himself. So, Rich, you have redesigned your entire health at the age of 72. We want to know, what was your life like before and what led you to make this major shift?
That's a great question. The 8 years ago, I was dead man walking. I was 72. I was old. A lot of my friends had passed away. I had very high blood pressure. I had my sweet, you saw in the book, my feet looked like elephant feet. I had aches and pains, strange ailments like kidney stones and Bell's palsy. And I didn't know it, but I was in the midst of chronic disease and metabolic syndrome. I had no idea. And I do what everybody else does. Like, hey, doc, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
They gave me statins and blood pressure medicine and, all the pills that they always do. They prescribe the pills. And, but I said, hey, I sold half my stock back to my company. And at 72, I'm preparing what happens. You get old, you die. And flash forward, I just sent invitations today to my 80th birthday party.
Oh, you're invited,
coming
right?
up in about coming up in about 6 weeks in March 10th. And I'm thinking about the 90th and now the 100th birthday party. But
Nice.
at age 80 now, almost 80, I don't take any medication. All my blood work's perfect. Everything's perfect. And but going back to when I was dying, that was it. I was done.
Yeah.
And basically what happened was a miracle. I mean, some people don't believe in them, but when I start calculating odds and it starts getting me 1 out of 1 trillion, I'm thinking, well, this is sort of a miracle. But I got this book. Let's see if I got. Oh, here it is, right here. I buy about 8 books every, 3 or 4 months from Amazon. I have them shipped here to Medellin, where I live, Medellin, Colombia. And I like to get the fiction so I can relax and not have to worry and just. But I saw this book called Sugar Crush,
Mm-hmm.
and the word right there, inflammation, caught my. I had a cupcake, and I'm
Ah.
thinking, oh, what's that about? Inflammation, sugar. So I bought the book, and I didn't read it right away. It sat at my desk. I read DeMille and Grisham and all the easy stuff. And I said, all right, I'll look at this. I start getting into it. And it's from some podiatrist who is tired of cutting diabetics people feet off. And he started thinking, he was tracing it back to sugar. And I'm thinking, maybe the sugar I should cut back, because I never thought sugar was bad. I did a low fat diet. I never did a low sugar diet because sugar
Mm-hmm.
gives you energy. It's good for you. Judge up.
Mm-hmm.
So I read the book, and I did something I've never done before. First of all, to read the book was amazing because it's a medical book. I took the book into my office, which I never had done, put it on my desk. And the day I did that, I'm hiring a new agent named Gus. He's a Colombian. And he says, can I bring my wife into the interview? I've never had anybody ask to bring their spouse into an interview. I said, oh, sure, bring her in. She sits in the corner. I don't pay any attention to her. I'm talking to Gus. I decide to hire him. So I turn over to his wife, and her name is Rasa. And I says, where are you from? She says, I'm Persian. I'm from Iran. Gus and I got married in Toronto. So, oh, okay. I said, well, what do you do, Rasa? Do you work? And she says, I'm a holistic doctor. And I go, I've never met a holistic doctor in my life. Now, what are the odds of that interview, that doctor? And so I hold the book up and I say, hey, Rasa, I should maybe cut back on my sugar. And she looks at me, my flame face, my flame feet, and she says, Rich, you should maybe do a detox. And I said, what's that? She said, well, basically, it's a program, 21 days, no sugar, very low carbs, no alcohol, no processed foods. And I was doing fine until she said no alcohol. I go, well, but I said, okay, well, send it to me. She sends me this program. And I tried it. I said, what the heck? I can go 21 days. without drinking, and I'm not a really sugarholic. And days later, I had to leave the gym again because I'm detoxing a poison. Sugar is a poison, and I didn't know it, but I was sort of lethargic, depressed. Oh man, but I said, I'm going to do this. Day 6, I started feeling better. Day 7, my energy's through the roof because now I'm going through ketosis. And my feet, every day when I get up like that, went or like that. I said, and I'm waiting for them to get, and they stayed normal. 21 days later, without dieting, I ate all I wanted, but just no sugar, no carbs, no booze. I'd lost 22 pounds. My blood pressure dropped from 100 over 60 down to about 130 over 80. Now it's 125 over 70. And I'm like, wow, what happened? So the first thing I did, I called my doctor, gave me all the pills. Hey, doc, I feel great. I'm not taking any more than meds. I've been started to read some books, and I think I'm going to. He said, "What'd you do?" I said, "Well, I quit eating sugar." And all these books behind me here, and many more. I've read at least 40 of them, hundreds of hours. But I basically understand what's going on. And of course, that doctor who I train now doesn't eat sugar anymore, nor you know my truth about the book kill you. These other books, they're all written by medical experts and scientists research. Mine's coming from an average person who this journey.
Rich, we're having some internet issues. Rich, on your end, I think. Can you hear us? There we go. You're back there. I'm going to ask you to unmute, Rich. There you go. Can you unmute?
muted.
You're muted.
Basically, what I've done, nobody else has done. Because when I started, I've done 7 years of research, and I've had the advantage of all the previous people and all the new information. But what I found out is it's not just that sugar is bad for you, but it's the massive cover up and the lies and the misrepresentation and how people do not have informed consent.
Yeah.
And when I argue with people about, well, they should quit sugar, people say, well, no, you shouldn't have laws and this and that restrictions. I said, no. Give people informed consent. Tell them the truth, what sugar is. So that started my mission. And I can get a lot more detail, but that's how I got started. I felt like I was supposed to write this book. It's my first and only book. I don't plan on writing more. I felt like I was supposed to do it. I've done it. It's out. It's all true. It's hard hitting. I'm getting great reviews. People love it. I've already saved a bunch of lives. So,
Beautiful.
that's it.
We share a common goal. We share a common goal.
Yep.
One question I want to ask you, Rich, is the idea of, writing a book, of course, is no small undertaking. And I love that you kind of given us the background on it. How did, when you were in the sugar and the processed foods and the alcohol, how did that show up in your health and psyche? And did it also show up in any kind of mental health symptoms like depression or anxiety or anything else? I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute again because we've got a little echo here. So if you want to unmute.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's an interesting question and that's a really good question because the book is entitled Killing You Softly. It could have been killing you slowly. It could have been killing you sweetly, but I think softly encompasses both slowly and sweetly. And sugar does not kill you overnight. It doesn't kill you in a day or a month or a year. It just builds over time. And we don't know. I mean, I know why. It's all in the book now, but and what happens. In fact, I'll tell you what happens because the United States is now its 3rd generation sugar addicts. We were the first to be addicted to sugar in the world. Started in the 50s with TB damage, processed food, sugar, and we exported that stuff around the world. The rest of the world is now second, first generation sugar addicts, but we're the first. And just this past week, the Wall Street had an article that our healthy years of living healthily have declined from 12.8 to 10.4 years. I mean, yeah, have increased. We're having longer terms when we're older of being unhealthy. 12.8 years used to be 10.4. Plus, our life expectancy is dropping. We're getting hit both ways. But that's because of sugar. Now, I didn't really notice it over the years. I was always active, always had fun. There was times I maybe a little depressed, felt stressed, felt down. Probably the only reason I'm alive today is because at age 55, I started weightlifting. I was dating a girl who was a bodybuilder. She wanted, if I was going to date her, and I had to start lifting weights. So I said, okay. She dumped me 3 months later, but I stayed with the weights. So, but it's like I didn't really notice anything except I was gradually put a little bit of weight on, and I noticed getting some. And then the inflammation started about when I was about 67, 68. I started noticing some swelling. Didn't know what that was about, and then I get these weird ailments. So it's just an accumulation over time and hits different people differently.
Sure.
But
Sure.
Chronic disease is responsible for 75% of healthcare costs and deaths. And that's all comes from what we eat, sugar and processed foods. I mean, it's all the facts are all there. So all I do know is since I've quit it, I've had none of those symptoms, nothing. And at age 80, I don't take any medication and my blood works perfect. So I know what's happened and I know about the cover-ups.
I'm going to read a quote in your book. Oh, it says, let's get one simple fact understood. There is no human requirement for sugar. You could almost say that it is a recreational drug with devastating long-term consequences. Hence the title, Killing You Softly, could have also been Killing You Slowly or Killing You Sweetly, like you had mentioned. And so then when you talked about getting off sugar and changing your diet, how long did it take you to feel these positive effects of a clean diet?
Within 7 days. I told you my feet slowly went away, my energy went up. And by day 21, I'm like, I increased weights at the gym. I mean, that's how good I felt. It was unbelievable. So it was almost immediate. In fact, I now detox 2 times a year. I do my 21-day detox just to stay fine-tuned.
Mm.
And at this very moment, I'm on day 4 of my latest detox, and I have 23 people on a WhatsApp group that are doing it with me. Just it's all new.
Nice.
So it's like it's unbelievable. And every time I quit my detox, I always wonder why I go back to red wine. I said, why do you even drink at all? You feel so good,
Yeah.
So it's quick. It's the human body is amazing.
I agree.
It treat it with give it real food and some exercise, some sleep. This body's designed to live to be 120, 130 years. And there's people going to achieve that now. They will. But if you're eating sugar and processed foods, you ain't going to make it.
I agree.
It's that simple.
I agree.
How do you mentioned, red wine and some alcohol here and there. Is that something that you do in between those detoxes? And how do you, where's your stance on alcohol as a form of sugar or processed food?
Yeah, I really have no defense for the red wine. I do know my holistic doctor says, yes, you can have a glass of red wine every 2 or 3 days. And I'm thinking my glasses are really big. And she goes, like that, not the big glass. And, a glass of red wine every 2 or 3 days, maybe it's not going to mess you up. But on the detox, you want to stay away because you're going to want to go into ketosis. So, it's something I wrestle with. Heck, in the book, I talk about women's love affair with sugar. And women are more addicted to sugar than men are, but men's sugar is booze. That's where they're getting the sugar from. I mean, alcohol, converts to some similar things that sugar does and does create some similar problems, in excess. So it's a shame, but if I had advice, it's a little red wine now and then.
Gotcha. Yeah. And you mentioned in your book the connection between sugar and cocaine. So now we're going to shift from alcohol to harder drugs. Can you share a little bit more about that sugar cocaine connection?
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that because all those books back there, none of them did what I did with that chart. And if you saw that chart, this compares the 15 characteristics of sugar and cocaine, about the same thing. Both white, both processed, both from a plant, both be chewed, both be smoked, both used socially, both highly addictive, both from the original formula Coca-Cola. I mean, the whole list goes on. At least with cocaine, you can lose some weight. You can't eating sugar. I mean, cocaine has one benefit, but I put that in there for a reason. Number one, it's true, but number two is to try to get people to understand this is a drug. Unfortunately, it's grass. It's recognized as safe, but it is a drug, and it's highly addictive, and it's killing you.
Mm.
But the people that are killing you are making trillions of dollars at the expense of your good health and your happiness.
Right.
And the lies they put on us is just absolutely unbelievable.
Right.
And the controls they have in Washington, D.C., and the FDA and the CDC and NIH and the politicians, it's just unconscionable. And it really makes me mad as hell. It really does.
I want you to be mad because you were mad. You wrote this book and it's helping to get the word out. I'm going to read another quote from your book at the beginning of chapter 10. Sugar consumption of all types has gone from 7 pounds per person per year in 1900 to more than 220 pounds per person per year on average today. This by itself is the foundation of sickness and disease that guarantees conventional medicine perpetual multi-trillion-dollar annual sales and profits. So how do you handle people who say, well, it's a special occasion, it's my birthday or it's Christmas, or I want to have grandma's fudge, or I don't want to miss out on that, or talk about the occasional person that wants to celebrate in that way.
To me, I don't consider celebrating eating poison as a celebration. Well, I don't want to hurt my
That's
kids
right.
or my family, or anybody else. So to me, that's not a celebration.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, we've been ingrained and bombarded with messaging for the last 75 years that, hey, this is good, celebrate, eat the cake, the pie, the candy. And of course, one of the biggest influences that is the tobacco companies, because they're biggest investors in processed food companies in the 80s and 90s. So they went from Tony the Tiger, to,
Right.
I mean, they went from Joe Camel to
Camel.
Tony the Tiger promoting this stuff. So the first thing is it's nothing to celebrate about. And once you quit it, you don't want it. I don't crave it at all. I mean, it's you can eat all the can in front of me, and I almost get nauseous. So the good news is, if you quit it, you won't crave it.
Mhm.
If you quit it, you don't crave it. And so, to those people, I say, once you know the truth, why would you even ask me the question?
That's right.
You wouldn't want to do it,
Yeah.
and you don't want your kids to do it.
Mm-mm.
But it's so sad what's going on with our children, as you know in the book.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I agree. In fact, I want to read one more quote out of the book. You started talking a little bit about big food, pharma, and big health. And I want to read a little bit that you wrote in here about that and then have you expound on that. You said, half of American adults now have diabetes or prediabetes. 3/4 of adults are overweight, and about 100 million or 42% are obese by the standards of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. Among children between 2 and 5 years old, 1 in 10 are already obese. Among teens, that number is 1 in 5. Our food, in other words, is literally killing us. Food companies have tricked our brains into making us complicit, and our elected officials are complicit too. What's needed is a better understanding of exactly how processed foods make us sick and a public reckoning of big food's role in the nation's health crisis. So far, policymakers have shown little appetite for scrutinizing the tactics of the powerful food lobby, but the pressure to curb consumption of ultra-processed foods is growing. So what do you want to talk about with how the intersection of big food, big pharma, big health, how are they all connected? You want to expound on that a little bit?
Yeah. Again, great question.
And are you watching
When I
over
said,
your shoulder?
huh?
Or do you
Do what?
watch over your shoulder at times too,
No.
because you've been
Well,
outspoken?
that's another story. Uh, I've often wondered who knows the truth in those industries, who really is complicit. And I don't think it all started with mean intentions because,
Right.
sugar was out there in the early 1900s because, mankind went 200,000 years without sugar. It didn't start till it started getting processed. Before that, it was just a very rare, cost more than caviar. And all people ate it with the super rich, and they're the ones that got fat. And, medieval pictures of fat kings and bishops and,
Mhm.
popes because they could afford to eat this crap. And they didn't know it was killing them. But it just went mainstream early 1900s. And in World War I, World War II, was sugar ration. Nobody had it. So it comes in around the 1945, 50, TV dinners, fast food, processed food. They start putting sugar in this. I don't think they knew then that this was bad for you. Now, as these profits grew, it's like, who knew? I mean, I know one time in the 60s, John Yudkin put up papers about sugar, and the sugar industry just crushed him. He was the first one to figure this out, a researcher out of Great Britain. They destroyed him with lies. And then they came out with this new hypothesis. Ansel Keys said, oh, fat's the culprit, not sugar. So we all went in no fat kick for 30 or 40 years.
Mm.
But there was a lot of lies going on. But the Sugar Institute started doing research on rats just to prove that, sugar doesn't hurt you. Well, the rats started dying of cancer. So they buried that research. New York Times exposed that several years back.
Mhm.
So it's like, so somebody started knowing the truth. How high up that goes, you could almost say the same thing about tobacco companies. How many tobacco execs really know that's bad for you? Because a lot of them still smoke. How many people in Coca-Cola know that's bad for you? Some they still drink Coke. So I don't really know. All I do know is big food gets us sick, and big pharma and big health make all the money treating that.
Mhm.
So what they're treating are the symptoms of sugar addiction. If my doctor in 1972 had said, Rich, look at what's your diet? You're eating stuff, you're drinking. You need to go off sugar and processed foods and cut the booze back and even do more exercise. Let's do that. Try that before you give any pills. Let's see what happens. I'd have been cured. So, this guy's brilliant. Thank you. Now, who makes any money when he tells me that?
There you go.
He doesn't. I'm not going back. Big Pharma doesn't. Big Health doesn't.
Right.
Now, the farmer might, but who else does? There's no money motivation there. We have this system where we're getting them sick, putting them in, and then treating them with all this. We're treating the symptoms, not the cause. And something not in my book, and I discovered this afterwards, and I wish I'd known this, but you can Google allopathic medicine. You know what allopathic medicine is? Okay. You know who really started that movement? The
Mm.
richest man in the history of the world.
Yeah, wasn't it one of the titans of industry?
The richest man in the history of the world. In US dollars today, John D. Rockefeller is worth $400 billion. When they started attacking his empire, he started trying to figure other ways to make money with pharmaceuticals as they're breaking up. And he saw a linkage with pharmaceutical products and I mean with oil for pharmaceutical products. So he brought in Abraham Flexner, some British scientist doctor, to design medicine, which would be reactive medicine or what they call allopathic. You treat the symptoms.
Right.
And he started giving money to medical schools. And so we gave up on holistic medicine or Eastern medicine or preventive medicine and went right to the medicine today.
Symptom
And the
treatment.
medicine today is what percent of doctors are trained in nutrition? Less than 2%. What percent is preventative medicine? Less than 1%. So what we're dealing with is a system that only treats the symptoms of this sugar addiction. Now, medicine is great. If you have an accident, you have a skiing accident, you wreck your car, you have a drug overdose, you have something wrong with you, they're great at treating that, but they're not great at treating chronic disease, which is 75% of our healthcare costs and deaths. That's what's killing us. And
Absolutely.
yet they're not trained that way. And,
Absolutely.
my book in the last chapter, I talk about the futuristic future. Well, in the future, and this will happen in the next 20 years, mark my words, 100% of doctors will be trained in nutrition and endocrinology as part of their training. And 75% of medicine assisted by AI will be preventative. It's going to happen. Just right now, we're not there yet because you and I are fighting an uphill battle. We're fighting the big money interests, the entrenched powers, They control the media, they control the politics. It's a tough group, but it's
Why do
happening
you
for
think
people out there.
Why do you think that will happen if the big money interests are controlling and insurances and healthcare providers are making so much? Why do you think that will happen? Why do you think that the future of medicine is heading towards prevention?
I put a whole chapter in the book about tobacco template. And tobacco is a great template for us
Mm,
because sugar should be treated like tobacco. It's a drug,
that's right.
should be labeled, should be taxed, taken out of schools, taken out of hospitals, restriction from you got to be an adult to buy it,
Mhm.
public service announcements, get the Congress and government involved, all the news media involved. That's what, but it took 50 years to do that for tobacco, an obvious carcinogen.
Right.
So, but this is much worse than tobacco. I mean, it
Mhm.
really is.
Yeah,
So
something's
it's
going to
just going to
happen or
take
the
some,
medical industry is going to collapse.
oh, it already is collapsing.
Mhm.
$4.3 trillion. I mean, when
Oh, it's
they're not
collapsing.
collapsing, by the way, they're making money. It's the U.S. economy is going to collapse. The
Yep.
healthcare system making a lot of money, and the insurance companies and the
Yeah, but
PBMs.
the providers aren't there. The providers
Oh,
can't keep up. They're burning out. They're
Yep.
That's what I
yeah.
say when I say they're
Well,
collapsing.
that's a whole different story. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's going to happen because there are enlightened doctors. I mean, Dr. Robert Lustig, who's the godfather of anti-sugar movement, and Dr. Johnson, all these other great doctors, they're on it and follow me. See, they're there. They're getting more and more people are coming on, more and more summits, more and more information is getting out. You know, I've touched at least several hundred people's lives, and if each one of them can touch another hundred, it's spreading, it's
Mm.
happening. It's to move the public over. But this is a big battle.
Oh,
It
huge.
really is. But we're going to win it.
Agreed. How do you have a chapter in your book all about the effects of sugar on women versus men. And you chose to put a woman's face on the cover of your book. It was a very, I'm sure, just special, particular choice. Tell us more about women and sugar.
She smoked. This is back in the 40s, and she drank. But she ate real food, so I was able to survive the pregnancy. You know, I shook off the booze and the smoke, but at least I wasn't diabetic, pre-diabetic, addicted to sugar out of the womb. Uh, but I say that because today pregnant moms are not smoking,
Mm.
but they are eating crap, processed foods, sugar, hamburgers, pizza,
Mm-hmm.
you name it, whatever, comfort food.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the ones that have the biggest influence on what the children eat,
Right.
as well as the husbands or boyfriends or girlfriends eat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have a major influence on
That's
what's
right.
being consumed. But unfortunately, they also have the sweetest tooth because
Mm.
you ask a woman to give up her chocolate and you got a fight in your hands. I mean, it's like you better run or get the gloves up or have a shield on. And they don't really want to hear it.
Mm.
And there are some hormonal things, I think I mentioned there. I know during the cycle each month, it increases sugar cravings. So there's stuff going on. The point is the women are the gatekeepers and they're the ones we've got to get on board because if we get them on board, the children and the men will follow. And I look at the kids in the United States today, it's just so sad. I never knew a kid had ADHD or took Ritalin or, autistic, all this stuff. It's like, it's so, and they're like this, and the grades are going down and everything's going bad.
Yeah.
It's the sugar. There's no question it affects the brain and the attitude, the whole body, everything that's going on. I have had the pleasure of meeting some parents that have kids, young kids, that are sugar free. These are very enlightened. Not only are they into healthy eating, but they're into the anti-age, everything, doing everything right. And these kids are like old souls. They're just so cool and calm and collected. And they had this certain vision about it. I was like, wow, who are these kids? So I want to get the women. I want to shock the women.
Yeah.
I want you guys to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the face is there with it. And the other one is, what do women do with every day? They just put tons of makeup on. you know, if you don't eat sugar, has a browning effect on the skin. It's an aging effect. It causes the blood, and it's like I've seen women, sugar-free women, and just the skin is beautiful, magnificent. So I'm doing everything I can to get you guys to take charge of this thing, man, and run with this thing because the guys will follow. You know, if he wants his dinner or wants to have sex, he's gonna have to eat what you prepare for him, you know? And so you
I love it.
guys, we need you to run this show.
Oh, that's great. A great answer. One of the things that we wanted to bring up and talk about is in Real Food Recovery, we have 4 foundational branches of recovery that we built our entire program on for our members. They are food or food prep, sleep, movement, and spirituality. In your book, you devote a chapter to food, exercise, and sleep. So, like us, how did you discover the importance of these principles in your own life?
Fuck. Well, I've been fortunate that I've always sort of exercised fairly routine. Otherwise, I would be dead right now. And it was the weights that I got into when I was in 1995. Uh, and I sort of stayed with that partly for vanity, I guess, partly a habit. But as the more I studied, I saw the relationship between eating real food, exercise, and sleep. They all work synergistically.
Mm-hmm.
And let me start with the backside. Well, let me just start with the food. If you're not eating real food, if you're eating sugar and processed foods, it's going to affect your exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it does this is several ways. And in my book, I pick on the women particularly because I say when I go to the gym, the one thing I don't see in the gym is women my age. You know, they should be there. There should be just as many women there at the gym or doing something than they should be guys.
Mm-hmm.
So why is that? Well, if you're eating sugar and processed foods, it lowers your energy. It doesn't raise it. People think sugar gives you. No, it's just the opposite because your liver is burning off fructose. Fructose is a poison, and it requires energy. It requires what's called ATP. So as that liver starts drawing off ATP, it sends a signal, a hormonal signal to the body, a foraging signal that we had for 200,000 years. It says, "Hey, I need more energy. Go eat." That's why we get cravings, to get hungry because we got to get the energy back. We think, and what do? We eat more crap. It's just this vicious cycle. It gets worse and worse and worse. So that's going on. That affects. We're not exercising now. If you're not eating right and exercising, what happens to your sleep? What happens? Oh, sleep is so critical. 7 to 8 hours is optimal because it does so many functions, including your immune system, everything. It's vital, vital. But if you ain't exercising and you're not eating right, you're not sleeping right. I mean, the sleeping pill business is an 80 billion. It's a huge business. Big pharma loves the fact you don't sleep well.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as I mentioned, the wild card of the big 3 is stress. You got stress over here. If all these 3 are working fine, you know, stress doesn't bother me. But if you have any of those things out of whack, stress exacerbates that whole process, makes it even worse.
Mm-hmm.
That leads to depression, suicide, violence, rage, you name it. Uh, it's all tied together. And you know what the wild thing is? I don't use the word diet. I just say don't eat poison. Eat
Yeah.
anything, but anything alongside of sugar. Just eat what you want. Eat as much as you want. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't eat poison, and everything will take care of itself. It's really pretty simple,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not because the trillionaires are making our lives very complicated and very sad and very unhealthy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're muted, Jamie. She was asking you a question, but no sound was coming.
There we go.
I'm
There
sorry.
we go.
Yeah.
So when we think about the role of spiritual practice for you, how did that role of spiritual practice or whatever your practice is around spirituality or lack thereof, did that play a role in your recovery from sugar?
It played a role in only after the fact when I discovered my new health and a gift for life.
Mm-hmm.
That it was a miracle.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like somebody wanted me to stay around a while.
Mm.
Good answer. I
Yeah.
like that. It changes your, when you come from a place of gratitude, don't you think it naturally taps into that place of wanting to uh, connect with a higher power and in that spiritual realm when you feel like it's above yourself, that there was a greater influence in your life than just yourself running the show?
I've always sort of had that, but this was a hell of a wake-up call. So I guess it re-strengthened that.
Yeah, nice. So do you think spiritual beliefs and practices are important in when we're unpacking these addictions to things like sugar?
It's a good question because I've always been fascinated with Alcoholics Anonymous because they have the spiritual component.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And if you're not, what do you do if you're an agnostic or, an atheist? Does that still work? So, yes, I think having a spiritual component is important to beat any addiction because sometimes you just got to say, hey, I need help. Help me.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at your last chapter of your book about the role of sugar in anti-aging and preventative medicine, you talked a little bit about it. When you think about lifestyle diseases, how has the lack of sugar in your life really contributed to kind of winding back that aging clock for you? And how have you seen it do that in other folks?
Wonderful question. And believe me, as you get to be 80, you'll start thinking about this more. uh,
Yeah.
I've been really studying this a lot, and I've read a lot of the books on anti-aging, so I'm aware of all the new therapies from hormone replacement therapy to stem cells to peptide therapy to, you know, uh, what do you call it? Bariatric chamber therapy, all that stuff. All this stuff works. I think all of it will help, including some of the anti-aging supplements, but if you're eating sugar and processed foods, this stuff's not going to help you. So my whole thing is just get the basics because right now 90% of the people have a problem. And there's this upper 1/10 of 1% that's already above all that. They know what's going on. They're into the anti-aging protocols.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't get into that so much. I just try to get people to keep it simple. Let's start first. Let's get us healthy first.
Mm-hmm.
The younger you are that you start on this, the longer you're going to live and the better you're going to live. And I said, there are kids today, the kids of these people I mentioned with these young children, they will live to be 120, 130. There's no doubt. It's all there. It's all there. But you got the earlier start, the better. It's too late for me. I did 72 years of damage. So, my days are numbered. Although I'm hoping for, I'm actually thinking about my 100th birthday party already. So, but the
We better
earlier
get an
start,
invite for
the
that.
longer. Do what?
We better get an invite for that.
All right. Do you want to come to the 90th or the 100th or both?
Yes.
Okay. You'll
Wouldn't be bad to make a couple trips down there. It sounds like where you live is very beautiful.
Yes.
just, but the earlier the better. It's all I can say. Um, the human, I've come to find an unbelievable machine. It's an incredible creation. And instead of all this science, it can't overcome what we're doing to ourselves. And these people making trillions of dollars, they got really no motivation to stop. We have to.
There we go. We're back.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if that's on my end or not.
Yep. No problem. You can start again on the motivation of people manufacturing this.
I'm sorry, what?
You can start again on the motivation of people manufacturing it. That's where we lost you.
I mean, when you're making trillions of dollars, there's not a lot of motivation to
Yeah.
tell people the truth,
That's
whether
right.
you know the truth or not, but there's no motivation.
That's right.
So there's a grassroots movement. It's going to happen. We're going to get there. you know, you guys are doing great work. I know a lot of other people are. We'll get there, but
Gonna take time.
Yeah. It will take time. And you know, I was fascinated as I read your book. My background is in the medical industry, and I was fascinated with your level of your intricate knowledge of science, the ATP, the Krebs cycle, all that. I mean, I was blown away by your knowledge. How did you garner all that information and put it together so well?
well, you saw the books. I mean, that's just some of them. There's about 25 there. I've read at least 500 articles and at least 200 or 300 hours of podcasts. I mean, what happened in 2000 in 1972 was like, I mean, when I was 72, when I found out the truth, I started researching.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The first person I stumbled onto was Dr. Robert Lustig.
Mm-hmm.
His famous video of a graduate school seminar 12 years ago called The Bitter Truth. It's an hour and a half technical, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's had, and then it's kept me going. I started finding more doctors and reading more books and more papers and, you know, 7 years of research. And you
Yeah.
saw the footnotes. So
Yeah.
some of that stuff rubs off. I mean, uh,
Very
it's,
impressive.
it's so obvious to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I know exactly what's happened. And a little bit, and just a little background. I've always believed in the United States government. I've always believed, my dad was military. I was in the military.
Mhm.
The first time I thought maybe my government is not so bright was the Vietnam War. I was a Vietnam War vet. And when we went in, they told us about the domino theory. Nixon's domino theory was, you know, Vietnam falls, then it's going to be Laos and Cambodia and Thailand and
Mhm.
then, you know, Indonesia and then Australia. And I'm saying, oh my God, the dominoes, man. What they didn't tell us was the biggest enemy for 10,000 years in North of Vietnam was the Chinese. They didn't like the Chinese at all. They never mentioned that to us.
Mhm.
But that was the first time I saw, and I know, and I started studying about the military industrial complex and all the money they're making and how they control Congress. Well, flash forward to today, big sugar, big food, big pharma, big health, they run the Congress now,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the Department of Defense.
Mm-hmm.
And all the Congress people are run by these guys. You know, there's 634 people in Congress. Hell, big pharma alone is 1,834 lobbyists giving them money. You
That's
can't
right.
get elected unless you take big pharma money.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine a senator or congressman going to his constituents and saying, hey, I'm not taking more money than these guys, and you got to quit eating sugar? He'd never get elected again. Ever.
True.
That's
Ever.
right.
He's done. He's toast. So this is what we're up against.
Mhm. So what's
I
the
mean,
answer?
it's
You
what
want to
we're
figure,
doing, what you're
what's the,
doing, what you guys are doing, what I'm doing, what doctors are doing that are getting informed. It's happening. It's and there's some good. And you look at some of the podcasters that are on top of this stuff. If I could ever get on to Joe Rogan's show, I'd sell a million books overnight.
Yeah.
Joe's on the stuff. He gets it. So does Robert
Absolutely.
F. Kennedy Jr., who I'm going to vote for.
Yes.
He gets it.
Very true.
So does Russell Brand gets it.
Yes, he does.
David gets it. Jordan Peterson. They're all these guys get it, and their audiences are starting. But their audience, unfortunately, hasn't seen this. And I've got a friend of mine who knows Bobby Kennedy Jr. very well. He's going to give him a copy of the book, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to get into Joe.
Awesome.
It's you know, it's just it's very expensive and hard to get on these podcasts, but
Yeah.
the word we get out, the better. We're all in this thing together, and
Couldn't agree more.
you know, yeah.
education is the answer.
Hmm.
Well, education, but motivated education and informed education.
Yes.
But people right now aren't informed, they're not educated, and they're addicted.
They're addicted. I think they're
When
informed
I
and
tell people,
educated in some way. I think they're addicted.
well, the funny story, it's in the book there, and I'll just say it again to illustrate how strong this is. My dentist, who treated me, you know, I got the best dentist in the world. This guy's unbelievable. And I put 10 dentist kids through college on my teeth. I just, you name it, I've had it. And every time I go on cavity, plaque. So I go on one day after I'd done my detox and got off sugar, go to see my dentist, you know, 8, 9, 10 months later. And he says, Rich, what happened? I, Oh, what do you mean? I'm thinking, oh, geez, something's bad here. He says, you don't have any plaque. I said, what? He said, I have any plaque. What'd you do? I said, well, I quit eating sugar and processed foods.
Brilliant.
And I got him on this kick then.
Mm.
And I mean, really on it to the point he's into the anti-aging stuff, but he's flash forward about a year later, I had to get some skin cancer, something removed right here. And only one of 3 doctors in Medellin can do this. Uh, and his wife was one of them. She's a dermatologist, Maria Stella. So I go in, she does the surgery, and afterwards we're going through post-op, and I'm seeing her. And one day we're talking. She's a beautiful gal, about early 40s, attractive, smart. And she tells me she's pre-diabetic. And now I'm in about my 3rd year of this, enlightenment. I said, Maria Stella, you got to quit eating sugar. And I'm telling you the truth. She looked at me like I'd stabbed her in the heart. Like I was crazy. And this is a doctor.
And it's her drug.
And now my dentist and his wife are fighting because they get 2 kids and she gives them candy and he doesn't want. And they're fighting. And I'm saying, oh, geez, I may have caused a divorce. But this is what we're up against.
Yeah.
She's an intelligent doctor.
I know. It's scary.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
there
very true.
any parting words that you want to leave with us that are pertinent that we haven't covered that you think people listening need to know?
Wow. We could go on for hours. Yeah, a couple things. We all know that there's only 2 countries in the world out of 183 that allow pharmaceutical advertised to consumers, the United States and New Zealand. So, Big Pharma controls the newspapers now and the legacy media and the cable. There's like, when I watch, I can watch TV in the States from here. Every other ad is a pharmaceutical ad.
That's right.
So they're never going to say anything, about what's really going on. But if I was editor-in-chief in New York Times, I'm going to run a headline every day, and it's going to repeat them and the top and the front page, because they do a good stuff, but it's buried in the health section. The first one I'm going to say is, our youth today, our children, will be the first generation in the history of the public in 250 years that will not outlive their parents.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah.
And why is that? That's a headline.
Absolutely.
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 The other one is the United States spends $4.2 trillion in healthcare. That makes it the 2nd biggest GDP in the world, or 3rd after China and Japan. And what do we get for that? We should be like number 1 in life expectancy and health, right?
Right.
We're number 47 and dropping. 6 of the last 7 years, we had declining life expectancy.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is that? Well, it's very, very simple. Because for the last 75 years, we've been eating this crap, the sugar consumption and all the processed foods. The United States gets 70% of the calories, processed foods, whereas Europe gets 12%. We're the sickest country in the world. And if you just go out and take a chart of sugar consumption per capita in the United States, looks like that, and do the same chart for cancer, diabetes, obesity, chronic kidney disease, Alzheimer's, depression, suicides, it's all the same chart. Now, does that mean sugar is bad? No, but the science is all there. It's not a coincidence. But we need to have headlines. So that's what I would do. That's what I would say. We got to tell the people the truth, and we got to let them know what's going on. So we're all in this thing together.
Agree.
Let's save some lives. Let's create more happiness and health, and we can do it.
Not understated. Absolutely not understated. Anything else you want to add, Jamie?
No, just thank you, Rich, for your time, for your wisdom, for all of the ways that you decided to really do the research, jump in. And something I was thinking about when you said the books you've read, the time that you've spent, you really are a student of the game. And you have taken it upon educating yourself. And so many of us, we are we are consuming the information that's being put out there by researchers and medical doctors and PhDs and counselors they're putting out this information that is valid. But so much of what I think most people who don't have that educational background realize is you can give yourself an immense leg up in the world, in your health, in your mindset, by educating yourself and becoming a student of the game, just like you chose to do. You don't have to, go to school for 20 years and come out with all these letters after your name to give yourself a leg up in giving yourself the best life and the best health that you deserve. And, look at medical doctors, right? They spend 13 years in school, 4 years in residency, and they're coming out with zero nutritional advice or 4 hours of nutrition in all the hundreds of hours they've spent in school. So you have taken personal responsibility. You have decided to educate yourself, and now you're taking it and carrying that message out and educating others. And that is, I think, I really believe, a hero's journey. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your all of your wisdom. And thank you for showing us that you, and all of us, all of the folks that are listening, that you can do this. It is never too late. We are never too advanced in life to take control and take responsibility for our health and for what we can actually impact.
Well, if I could just say one final thing, and it brought up a point. One of the things I try to do is keep it simple. That's why I don't say diet and I don't say this or that. But we're all going to live for about 30,000 days in our life. And it's like, take 21 of those and detox. Because if you do that, if you really do it like we're doing it, like I've done it, and see that miracle after 21 days, man, you got this baseline. You sort of said, now, hey, I can do that. This is something. It's management. I know the answer. But if you don't do that, you really don't know. So I just try to get people to. It's in fact, I've got it in there. That same program I did, 8 years ago is in there. It's that same diet. I don't know diet plan, but stuff to eat. It's once you know it, once you know the truth, it's a lot easier. So
I agree.
And
good
work, guys. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That segues perfectly into my final thought, and that is you don't have to do it alone. That's what Jamie and I set up our online food addiction recovery community so that we can help support people. You've got to have support in this, and we are here to help people. As I like to say, I want to pull people into the lifeboat, because when you know better, you do better. And when you're at a place that you are off this sugar and flour, the thing that the pinnacle of recovery from this is you want to turn outwards and start helping other people. It's just a natural thing that you want to do, is you want to shout it from the rooftops. So if you want to know more and if you want support, find us at realfoodrecoveryforyou.com. That's the number 4, the letter U. So realfoodrecoveryforyou.com. And we are there to help you in any way possible. So with that, just want to say thank you one more time, and I hope that we have a chance to visit again at some point.
Thanks, Rich.
Well, if not, I'll see you at my 90th birthday party. Okay.
That's right.
Definitely.
I was actually just getting ready to say, I hope you have a whopping good time at your 80th birthday party. So what do you serve besides birthday cake?
Well, no cake. Oh, God.
There you go. That's right. No cake.
No. There'll be regular food, but we will serve a little red wine though. So,
Okay.
but no cake.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks. See
All
you
right.
next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.